Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
I was going through my notes this evening and I came across a quote. I don't know who it's attributed to, but it says, "How better to keep a slave than to treat his desire for freedom." How better to keep a slave than to treat his desire for freedom. And I thought that was rather profound. Don't know where it came from originally, and it's just in my notes. I probably just read it in a book and dropped it here. But I want to talk about that because if you are a man who is seeking freedom from your behavior with pornography and you believe that there is a root cause, you already know how I feel about that. But I will tell you again, if you go searching for a root cause, you are going to be lost. You are going to spend many years in the wilderness seeking a solution for this. Because think about this. You already believe that you are a slave to this behavior. You already believe that it has mastery over you in some way or the other. You believe you are hopeless. You believe you cannot control this. And then when you go to seek help, the person who is helping you tells you that they are going to treat, which, by the way, is the first red flag. When somebody says they are going to treat the root cause, they are doing so that you will keep showing up. Now, not only are you a slave to the behavior, but you are now a slave to whatever that person's methodology is. That means that they have the expertise. They are the ones who can magically guide you to finding out the root cause. In the past, people would say like, "Oh yeah, I'll find the root cause." Now it's more like a done with you. We will find the root cause together. But at the end of the day, here's the thing with the root cause, just as a reminder. First of all, if there was a root cause to your out of control behavior, and let's say it was rooted in trauma, it was rooted in maybe not even trauma, some realization about your behavior, your personality, and events, something about you or your history or your physiology from the past, deep within you. Do you have the requisite coping strategies to handle such a truth? Because on a behavioral level, you can't stop touching your dick. You can't stop going to whatever website that is on the most basic behavioral level, as in, don't go to that site. You cannot do it. What makes you think that you are equipped to handle whatever may come up from this mysterious root cause? I always wonder how people think they're going to handle this root cause. And in most cases, the implication is that it is something traumatic. Now, what if we find this root cause? Secondly, how do we know that it has anything to do with your pornography addiction? What if it just has something to do with your sexual behavior? Which, by the way, our sexual behavior as biological creatures is quite complex. So if you're like, whoa, this root cause, and I watch that type of pornography. Yeah, I'm into MILF stuff because I have some Freudian issues with my mom and blah, 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 blah. And that's definitely why I love, like, seriously, it could be anything. When a quote unquote mental health professional or whomever works with you and walks you down this path of the root cause, they are delving deep into your psyche. And sure, they have done research and they've gone to school to learn about these things. But how do they know that this is related to your behavior with pornography? Those of you who've been watching pornography for years and you've seen your behavior with pornography escalate, you've seen the type of pornography that you view change. Does this professional understand the trajectory and the history of your behavior with pornography? Like, how far back are they truly going to go? And do they even have the right science? The other day I was listening to a podcast, just watching the video of Dr. Andrew Huberman, the celebrity researcher, and Theo Vaughn, a comedian. And Theo had Dr. Huberman on his podcast, and he was asking him about pornography and the science behind it. And I love what Dr. Huberman said. He said, the issue with pornography addiction today is that the science has not caught up with culture. And that happens way too often, where the science, he said, in order to do good science takes a long time. It takes many years, sometimes decades. This is the reason why you had doctors back in the day smoking cigarettes and saying menthol was good for your health. It wasn't till years later that we found out that cigarettes actually killed you when you smoke too much. The same thing is happening today with pornography addiction, where the research is only just catching up, and large swaths of the population don't even believe that it is a major issue. Does your therapist or the person working with you, do they understand what's happening, or are they using old science? The science of trauma, the science of inner child work, all this old science, is that what they're using? Because I will tell you right now, many of you will make more progress by being around other pornography, quote unquote, addicts who have been trying for years to end this behavior and tried many things. The advice you will get from accountability group is often superior to what you will get from a therapist. I know, not a popular opinion, but those guys are the culture. Your therapist is working with old science. Again, the final piece on the root cause is that the root cause, at least in my experience working with clients, people think there's one root cause, but often, and I wouldn't even call it a root cause, there are many things that leads to a person's behavior with pornography. Remember, pornography is not even the main problem. It is a symptom of something that is underlying, and underlying does not mean that it is at the root of anything. I've seen a person's behavior with pornography be due to something habitual, where they never had this problem at any point in their life. However, when they were doing their PhD or during a very stressful time in life, they began to lean on it. I've seen it to be introduced into people's lives by a partner. It has been introduced by using drugs or drinking, smoking weed. I've seen it being used as a coping strategy for some sort of pain in their life. Again, I'm not talking about deep psychological things. Sometimes the pain is the pain of just living in chronic stress. They were like, I did not view pornography till I actually started my business, and I scaled past 7 to 8 figures. Then I noticed that I chronically use pornography whenever my business is scaling from one level to the other, right? When it's scaling from 1 to 3 million, when it scaled from 3 to 5, when I was about to sell it. At each of those points, I experienced a crazy amount of stress, and I found out that I was binging on pornography. But then I wondered why it would slow down after a few years. Now imagine somebody like that who actually recognizes through a system that his behavior is due to chronic stress that only occurs at certain stages of his life. Sometimes people will even throw in, I only chronically use pornography when I have a kid. So they're like 3 kids deep, and they're like, always it is when I'm not getting enough sleep, waking up super early in the morning to nurse our baby, dealing with just the stress of everything and my wife. And those are the times that I'm like, man, is this an addiction? Because I'm doing this every day to cope. Imagine somebody like that goes to a therapist or a coach or somebody who says, yeah, bro, we really got to find the root cause of this behavior. That is insane. That ends up damaging you more. And that's what I mean by that. And that's why this quote resonated. Like, how better to keep a slave than to treat his desire for freedom? You just want to be free of this. And they're like, let's go so deep into the root cause. All of this root cause stuff, all of this treatment of pornography addiction, it is from the disease model. And what is a disease? Like, the definition of a disease, at least the AI, Webster, Google definition, is that it is a disorder of structure or function in an organism, especially one that has a known cause and a distinctive group of symptoms. But here's the crazy thing. Pornography does not have a known cause. Now, this is something it has in common, which is actual pornography, but that is not the cause. There is no specific known cause, but these people are quick to call it a disease, or even if they don't call it a disease because it's not trendy to do so, they are still treating it like it is a disease. And when you're treated for something that is a disease where the science has not yet fully caught up with it, and people are telling you, yeah, definitively, bro, it is the root cause. I think that is just straight up unethical to do that to somebody. Like, bro could have joined a program, used somebody's free material, could have been in an accountability group, and just learned that, wow, I just needed to have better boundaries in order to get to the late stage of my reboot. I think it is incredibly unfair to do that to men. And you are doing yourself a disservice if you're beating yourself up to the point that you are vulnerable and desperate for anything. There are men, and I'm going to call y'all out. Y'all show up and you're like, nah, you're not a pro. Like, you'll talk to the reboot strategist or even myself. You're sitting around in a group going like, whoa, no, this is like some really basic shit. I'm pretty sure that it's deeper than this, because you've spent years trying to convince yourself, because you were not seeking professional help, that this was something bigger than it was. I understand that your behavior with pornography can seem like something huge. Like, it can seem like, oh my God, because I can't stop it, it definitely must be this debilitating thing that is deeply rooted in trauma. But when you come around people, like let's say in the porn reboot system, you'll see a mix of guys. You'll see guys who are dealing with trauma, but you'll also see a lot of guys who are just chill about it. And sometimes if you've conditioned yourself to believe that this is a root cause issue, or you've been in a program that tells you it's like some defect in your masculinity, you feel that, oh, you're wasting your time here, that it has to be something deeper. And it's very unfortunate, because we will see men go like, nah. Y'all don't know how to handle this. It has to be deeper. It's a neuro thing. I need to go neurologically rewire my brain and learn about all the different parts of my brain. I need to re-stimulate my prefrontal cortex. I need to retain my semen. I need to go find out my shadow self. I need to learn how to love my inner child. And I know I speak sarcastically about these things. There is a place for all of them, including our program. But if you are quick to assume that it is something deeper, then you are not going to give the behavioral aspect of this a chance. And gentlemen, this is a behavioral addiction. It is a process addiction. It is not a disease. It is based on behavior that you engage in. Something, quote unquote, triggers you, and then a neurochemical cascade begins. A neurochemical is released. It could be adrenaline. It could be one thing. It could be norepinephrine. Something is released at some point. And here's the crazy thing. The process of arousal is different for every man. Sometimes you'll see people draw like some generic arousal chart. And yes, you can draw a generic arousal chart and say what I just did, which is like, oh yeah, there's a trigger and then this happens. But the minute that you get to the biochemistry of an individual, it is different for each man. For some men, they just want that endorphin rush. So what do? They go to the most extreme thing possible immediately, and they stay there for a very short period of time, get their fix, and move on to the next thing. Others are edging because all they're doing is they're addicted to the short release of adrenaline. They're addicted to the short release of dopamine. Dopamine is an endorphin, but really for them, it is the mixture of adrenaline, which is released during the arousal process, and later on dopamine. And a lot of it is dependent on your biology. Like, there are people who are low in dopamine, and they typically tend to have ADHD. Oh, that's another thing, by the way. Quick tangent. Did you know that if you have ADHD, you are more likely to be hypersexual, that you are more likely to be addicted to pornography? And is your therapist or your psychiatrist telling you that? Because that is something that is found out only in the culture. What do I mean by the culture? Like Andrew Huberman says, the science takes time to catch up with the culture. The culture is the community. Y'all are still out here thinking that you can do this on your own. I'm going to figure it out on my own. And then you're watching videos from YouTube influencers and all these urologists and doctors online who are doing things based on studies they have seen. They are not a part of the actual culture of ending this behavior. And so they are not going to catch these nuances. You will soon find out, and I put my career on it, that this is going to start being in academic journals. It is going to be in academic journals that ADHD is linked to pornography addiction, and it will become more and more common as children and young men become more and more distracted. And as for, I don't even to get into politics of it, more people are being born with ADHD. So what is the solution to all of this, JK? You've ranted against, you said that we're all becoming slaves and don't get treatment. And I'm not saying don't get treatment, but you're smart enough to get my point. Just be very mindful about where you seek help. So JK, what is the solution? The easiest way to put it is that your identity needs to change. Your identity at a core level. Core does not mean roots. It just means that you have to break your identity down. By the way, it is not some deep inner child root cause kind of stuff. It's just your reputation with yourself is going to completely change. Your values are going to change. If we say that the human body is made up like whatever, 90%, I don't know what it is scientifically, but mostly made up of water, then your self-image or your identity is mostly made up of your values. So at the end of the day, you have to change your values and the things you value. When you change that, you change the way you view yourself. And you are no longer a slave. Slave means a whole bunch of things, but it comes with a whole bunch of values. I think I've recently reiterated that the values or some of the values that men who are attracted to the porn reboot system relates to are autonomy, happiness, free will, and critical thinking. The ability to think critically about things. And there is no way that you can be an autonomous individual, an individual who believes in free will, an individual who was constantly searching for happiness, and an individual who is critical of things. You like, tell me why, JK, explain it to me, break it down for me. There's no way you can do that and simultaneously be in some group for like 12, 13, 14 years, some step group, working with the same therapist and still viewing pornography. There is no way. In fact, if you've listened to this episode thus far, then chances are you relate to all of those values because everything about this particular episode reflected one of those values. And that's the only way you can stand me. Somebody who does not believe in autonomy will be like, this guy has a tinfoil hat. He doesn't believe in the science. I want to see his credentials. Fuck that shit. I'm going to go work with my psychotherapist. My wife said there's somebody down the road that her friend's husband's cousin worked with, and I'm going to work with that person. But if you got to this point, then there are certain things that you value. I invite you to be a part of the culture. The culture is not JK. The culture is thousands of men. Hundreds of men in the program right now and thousands of men over a 13-year period who contributed to what we have right here in our wonderful community. Come and learn from them. Come and meet men who are in the late stage and the maintenance stage. Come and meet men who are your peers, who are high performers, who are high functioning, overcoming this behavior.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot Group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.